I heard the laugh before I even registered the words. One of those sharp, effortless sounds that tells you you're the joke, not part of it. Connor was standing by the fireplace, a drink in one hand, my oxygen tank in the other like it was some novelty prop. "He'll be gone by Christmas," he said, smirking. "Then we remodel." The room didn't go quiet. It erupted. Laughter bounced off the walls. Even my daughter-in-law chuckled behind her wine glass. My son, Mark, looked at me and then quickly looked away. No one said a word in my defense. I didn't say anything either, just sat there, silent. The oxygen hissed beside me, each breath a little heavier than the last. I stared at the lights on the tree, blinking red and gold, trying to pretend I hadn't just been laughed out of my own legacy. "Connor," Mark said, almost a whisper, "that's enough." Connor shrugged. "Come on, it's a joke. You're all so sensitive." A joke. I stared at my hands, thin and trembling slightly. There was a time when I could lift both my sons at once, run with them on my back. Now I was a joke, a burden, something to clear out for square footage and an open floor plan. When the dinner ended, I excused myself early. Nobody offered to walk me out. I took the elevator to my room, the in-law suite they let me have in the basement, and sat in the dark. The oxygen tank hummed beside me. I could still hear the echo of their laughter. It crawled under my skin like cold water. If anyone's listening, don't make the mistake I did. Don't hand over everything you built before you know who your family really is. I trusted too soon, and now I was an obstacle to their renovation plans. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out the photo of Elaine, my wife. She died 5 years ago, but tonight I missed her like it had only been 5 minutes. She would have said something at that table. She wouldn't have let them speak about me like that. I whispered into the silence. They laughed at me, Elaine, like I was already dead. Tears stung my eyes, not because they joked, but because no one, not even my son, had stopped them. I looked at the legal folder beneath her photo, the trust documents we signed together. I hadn't looked at them in years. The tank hissed again. I closed my eyes, breathed in slowly, and felt the quiet rage settle in. Not if I leave first, I thought. Not if I take everything with me. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Connor's voice, smug, certain. "Gone by Christmas." The words clung to my chest tighter than the oxygen mask ever did. So I got up before sunrise, dressed slowly, and asked the facility driver to take me to the storage unit. He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. The air inside the unit was stale, cardboard and mildew and dust thick enough to coat your throat. I pulled the string on the overhead light. A dull yellow bulb flickered on. This place hadn't been touched in years, just like the truth. I opened the first box, photo albums, Elaine's old teaching plaques, some holiday cards we never sent. The second box had files, insurance, tax returns, pension letters. And then at the very back behind a crate of books, I saw it, a small gray metal box with a tarnished lock. I knew that box. Elaine insisted we keep it for the real things, she said. I fumbled with the key looped on my chain. The lock clicked open. Inside were our wedding certificates, the deed to the house, and the original copy of the trust. My hands shook as I unfolded the pages. Elaine's signature, mine. Not a single mention of Connor. He wasn't in the original plan. Underneath the documents was a sealed envelope, her handwriting steady, looped. "If anything changes, read this." I broke the seal with my thumb. "If you're reading this, you know something gone wrong. Don't let them take what we built. We did this for the right reasons. But if their hearts turn cruel, rewrite everything. Protect yourself. And remember, you still matter, even if they pretend you don't." I couldn't breathe, and not because of the tank. She knew. Somehow, years before any of this happened, she knew what could come. I sat on an overturned crate and stared at the papers, the letter in my lap. A lifetime in 2 hands. I remembered the day we signed the trust, the smiles, the champagne, The naive belief that family would always protect family. I see now how foolish that was. I took out my phone and scrolled until I found the number. Helen Evans, estate attorney. We hadn't spoken in nearly 4 years. I hit dial. "Mr. Marshall," she answered, cautious. "It's Richard," I said, voice cracking. "I need your help." She paused. "This about your grandson?" I hesitated. "Yes, he joked that I'd be gone by Christmas. They're talking about remodeling the house already." Silence. "You're not the first elder he's joked about replacing," she said quietly. "He's done this before, and worse." My stomach dropped. "We need to meet," she continued. "Bring everything you have." I looked around at the boxes, the life scattered in fragments. "Okay," I said, "I'll come in tomorrow." As I stood to leave, the letter pressed against my chest. I realized this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a pattern, and I was finally ready to break it. The kitchen light glared too bright for a conversation like this, but I stood my ground. My fingers trembled slightly, either from age or from fury, maybe both. "Mark," I said, "we need to talk about what Connor said on Christmas." He didn't look up from the sink. "What now?" "He said I'd be gone by Christmas," I said. "Then they could remodel." He dried his hands slowly. "Dad, come on, that was a joke." "Don't," I snapped, sharper than I meant to. "Don't dismiss it like that. He meant it, and you laughed." He turned finally, arms crossed. "I didn't hear that." "Yes, you did." "Maybe," he said, his voice tightening. "You imagined it. You've been on some heavy meds, and you're—" He stopped. "Old," I finished for him. "I didn't say that." "But you meant it." He sighed, exasperated. "You're being paranoid, Dad." I stared at him, this man I raised, the boy I once carried on my shoulders at the state fair. Now he stood there acting like I couldn't trust my own memory. Gaslighting, that's what it was. He patted my shoulder like I was some senile old fool and walked out. I stood there, heart pounding. The worst part wasn't the joke. It was his attempt to erase it, to make me question my own mind. That wound cuts deeper than mockery. I returned to my room in silence. The air felt heavier than usual, my breathing strained even with the oxygen. I sat down, eyes fixed on the hallway where Mark had just walked away. Then I heard them, Mark and his wife whispering in the kitchen, unaware I hadn't closed my door all the way. "We need that inheritance," she whispered. "It's time," Mark replied. "He's not getting any better, and if we wait too long—" I didn't hear the rest. Rage burned through me, not hot but cold, clean, focused. I reached for my phone on the table and quietly opened the voice memo app. Hit record. I captured it all, their voices, their tone, the urgency in his voice. It was all the proof I needed. When the audio stopped, I saved it, labeled it Kitchen Betrayal, and emailed it directly to Helen. I typed with stiff fingers, "This is what I was afraid of. Please advise. R." My thumb hovered for a moment before I hit send. I sat back, staring at the screen like it might catch fire from the truth. The reply came 10 minutes later. "Come in tomorrow. We're rewriting everything, with teeth this time." I looked out the window, where the snow had begun to fall again. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like the air was pressing down on my chest. Let them think I'm weak. Let them think I forgot. I remember everything. Helen's office hadn't changed much. Same soft lighting, same wall of framed degrees, same smell of fresh paper and quiet judgment. I sat across from her, the trust folder on the table between us like a loaded weapon. She adjusted her glasses and flipped through the pages. "This," she said, tapping the third page, "is not your signature." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. "Connor's name was added last year," she continued. "But the change document doesn't match the original notary log. Whoever did this knew just enough to make it look legitimate, but not enough to fool an expert." My mouth went dry. "So they forged it." Legally, yes, that's elder fraud and it's serious. I looked down at my own handwriting, the real one, the one beside Elaine's from years ago. We did this together, I said quietly. Every word in that original trust was ours. She made me promise to protect what we built. Helen softened for a moment. Then let's start protecting it. She pulled out a fresh amendment form. This isn't just a reversal. This is a correction. We're removing Mark and Connor from the beneficiary list entirely. I looked at her. Who replaces them? Helen hesitated. That's your choice. I didn't need to think long. Elaine's hospice foundation, the one she used to volunteer with. She smiled. I hoped you'd say that. The next hour was meticulous. We initiated a forensic review request, handwriting analysts, signature verification, chain of document custody. She explained it all calmly, but I could hear the blade beneath every word. This wasn't just legal. It was war, clean, quiet, devastating. When she slid the final form across the desk, I picked up the pen with fingers steadier than I expected. I signed my name, my real name, with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Then I pressed the seal onto the page, and it was done. Notarized, rewritten, protected. I leaned back, exhaling slow through the hiss of my tank. So what happens now? Helen folded the documents neatly. Now nothing for a little while. I frowned. Nothing. They need to think everything's normal, that you're still vulnerable, still the old man in the basement. I thought about Mark's hand on my shoulder, about Connor laughing with a glass in his hand, about their plans, remodels, renovations, inheritance calculators. I nodded. I can act. Helen tilted her head. Are you sure? I've been acting for years, I said, smiling through grief, staying quiet while they talked over me. This part'll be easy. She slid the envelope into a safe marked pending transfer. When you're ready, she said, this will hit like a hammer. I stood slowly, gripping the armrest. The sunlight through her window hit the corner of the document just right, and for a second, Elaine's name shimmered in gold. This wasn't just a correction, it was a resurrection, and it was only the beginning. They knocked on my door like they hadn't gutted me days earlier. Mark walked in first, arms wide. Dad, thought we'd check in on you, brought a little something. He held out a holiday gift basket, overpriced crackers, one bottle of wine I can't drink, and a red ribbon too bright to be sincere. Connor followed, all swagger and charm. Missed you at brunch, Pops. Thought we'd bring the party here. Their smiles were too wide, too perfect, performances, both of them. I shuffled back to my recliner with deliberate slowness. Each breath shallow, each step a performance of its own. I coughed lightly, a dry, frail rattle I'd practiced in the mirror. I knew how they wanted to see me, so I gave them exactly that. Nice basket, I rasped. You boys sure know how to make an old man feel festive. Mark sat on the arm of the couch. How have you been feeling lately? Still here, I muttered. Connor crouched beside me, too close. His cologne stung my nose. You're hanging in like a champ, Pops, stronger than you look. He leaned in closer, dropped his voice low. Just hang in there till New Year's, yeah. After that, we'll take real good care of the place. He smiled like it was a promise, or a threat. I smiled back faintly. I'll do my best. The pen clipped to my sweater collar blinked once, voice activated, just like Helen promised. Everything they said was captured. Every insult wrapped in charm, every whisper laced with entitlement. They stayed for 20 minutes, talked about football, asked empty questions. Mark joked about installing a wet bar once the space opened up a little. I laughed along, thin and hollow. When they finally left, I watched from the window as they got into the car. Mark lit a cigarette. Connor scrolled through his phone. They never looked back. I waited until the hallway was quiet. Then I unclipped the pen and sat at the small desk by the window. The snow outside blurred the streetlights, soft and slow. I plugged the pen into my laptop, copied the file and labeled it Home Visit Deck 27. Then I opened the final trust amendment Helen had emailed. Everything was ready: the forensic report, the legal footnotes, the transfer protocols. All it needed was one final signature and a set date. I scrolled to the bottom and hovered over the digital sign button. "Just hang in there," Connor had said. I clicked it. December 30th. The day the world would shift beneath their feet, quiet, legal, absolute. The transfer would be irreversible. And this time, no one would laugh when I left the room. Mark called me 2 days before New Year's Eve, his voice syrupy with false nostalgia. "Dad," he said, "we're having a little dinner at the house, family only. Thought it'd be good to end the year together, like old times." Like old times. I agreed, of course, told him I'd be there. That night I laid out my clothes carefully. The gray sweater Elaine once said made my eyes softer, and slacks with a crease still sharp from the cleaners. I clipped the oxygen tank to my chair, placed the envelope in my coat pocket, and waited for the driver. When I arrived, the house was glowing. Warm lights, clinking glasses, the smell of steak and rosemary and something sweet in the oven. Laughter spilled from the dining room before I even stepped inside. Mark met me at the door, all smiles. There he is, the man of the hour. Connor was already seated at the head of the table, grinning like a man who thought he'd won something. "Pop, Pop," he said, mock affection in his voice. "Glad you could make it. Hope you brought your appetite." "I brought something," I said quietly. I parked myself at the far end of the table, oxygen tank hissing gently beside me. I listened as they talked about property values, travel plans, tile samples. I nodded, ate a little, smiled when expected. No one asked about my health. No one asked about Elaine. Halfway through the meal, Connor stood, glass in hand. "A toast," he announced, the room falling into a soft hush, "to fresh beginnings and upgrades." He winked at his father, then looked at me. I set down my fork. "Speaking of fresh starts," I said, my voice low but steady, "I have something too." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the envelope, set it on the table beside my plate. All eyes followed. "The trust has been updated," I said, "effective 10 a.m. tomorrow." Mark furrowed his brow. "What are you talking about?" Connor laughed. "What trust?" "The one you forged," I said, looking straight at Mark. "The one with the signature that wasn't mine." Silence. I stood slowly and wheeled the oxygen tank around the corner of the table. "Everything's legal, notarized, filed. I suggest you speak with your lawyers in the morning." Mark stood. "Dad, wait." I didn't. Behind me, chairs scraped the floor. Voices rose, silverware clattered. I didn't turn back, didn't need to. The air outside was sharp and honest. The wind didn't lie to me the way they did. I exhaled through the mask and let the cold settle into my chest. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without waking, without their voices in my head, without Connor's laugh echoing through my bones. Only peace. Helen called me just after 10. "They came in," she said, voice composed, "right on time." I imagined it, Mark packing her office like a storm in loafers, Connor trying to act composed while sweating through his designer shirt. The empire they thought was theirs, already gone by the time they opened their mouths. "They screamed," she said. "Mostly Mark. Connor, he looked confused, like the math didn't add up, like the world had flipped on him." It had. They asked how, she added. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Let them wonder." "They're not getting it back," she assured me. "The forensic report is airtight. The signature was forged. The audio from your apartment sealed it. The 'after New Year's' line, that was the nail. And the accounts? Frozen, pending full investigation." I whispered, "Good." I hung up and sat back in my recliner. My tank hummed beside me, soft and steady. just loud enough to remind me I was still here, breathing, surviving. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, I answered. "Mr. Marshall," a warm voice said. "This is Dana. I'm with the Elaine Marshall Literacy Foundation." I blinked, yes. "I just wanted to let you know, the board met last night. Because of your gift, we've named the new reading room after your wife. It's already on the plaque." My throat tightened. She would have loved that. "I hope you'll come visit when it's finished." "I will," I said and meant it. After the call, I just sat there in the silence. I imagined Elaine sitting beside me, her hand in mine, her soft laugh echoing through the room as if to say, "Well done, Richard. You remembered who you are." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. "Connor, how could you do this to us?" I stared at the screen for a while. There was a time I might have answered, explained, tried to make him see. But I've learned something about betrayal. It doesn't begin with one moment. It builds, over years, in glances, in silence, in jokes made over dinner plates. They knew what they were doing. They just never thought I'd do anything back. I locked the screen and set the phone down. Outside, the sky was turning orange. Somewhere in their half-remodeled kitchen, Mark was probably throwing things. Connor was probably Googling, contesting a will. Their vacation fund, gone. The new cabinets, on hold. The future they built on my grave, frozen mid-dream. I closed my eyes and breathed in deep. I had nowhere to be, nothing to prove. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough. It started with a knock on my door and a soft voice. "Mr. Marshall, my name's Elise. I'm with the Chronicle. Helen said you might be open to speaking." I sat up in my chair, the window cracked open beside me. Cold air curled around the edges of the curtain. I nodded. "You can sit." She didn't bring a camera, just a notebook and a small recorder. Respectful, quiet, unlike the noise I'd been swimming in for months. "I'm writing about elder trust manipulation," she said. "There's a growing number of cases and no one wants to talk." "They don't," I agreed. She clicked the recorder on. "You don't have to answer anything that makes you uncomfortable. I've already lived through the uncomfortable part." She nodded once. "What hurt the most?" I thought she'd ask about the fraud, or the legal process, or the betrayal itself. But that question cut deeper. I looked at the floor for a long time. "It wasn't the betrayal," I said finally. "It was the silence after, when no one defended me, when they just let the laugh hang in the air like I wasn't even in the room." She didn't speak, just let the recorder run. I told her about the dinner, about the whisper beside my oxygen tank, about the pen that caught it all. I told her about Elaine's letter, her warning wrapped in love, and how that one page gave me the courage to become myself again. She stayed for an hour, didn't rush. When she left, she shook my hand, firm, steady, and said, "You'll be helping more people than you know." The article went live 2 days later. "Elder Trust Manipulation, the billion-dollar abuse no one talks about." My name was printed in black and white. My story, our story, laid bare. They included a quote from the interview in bold. "It wasn't the betrayal, it was the silence after." That line spread like wildfire. People reposted it, commented, shared. And then the stories came in. My daughter took the house the week after my surgery. My grandson said I was confused and changed the bank login. My father's brother forged his name on the deed. Hundreds, thousands. I read them all slowly, one by one. For the first time, I didn't feel like an afterthought. I felt seen. A woman named Darlene wrote, "Thank you for speaking up. I thought I was the only one." Another said, "My son did the same thing. Your story saved me from signing something last week." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The silence had finally cracked open. And behind it, a chorus of voices, older, tired, but still here, still breathing, still fighting. Just like me. Connor's text came late, almost midnight. Please, Grandpa, I didn't mean it. It was just a joke, I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. It wasn't the words. It was the timing. They'd had weeks to apologize. Now that the money was gone, the house frozen, the headlines public now, they remembered remorse. I didn't reply. The next day Helen called. They want mediation, she said. Mark's lawyer reached out. Let them, I said. I'll be there. We met in a plain room with pale green walls and silence so tight you could feel it in your teeth. A long oak table stretched between us. Mark sat on one end, Connor beside him, eyes red, voice shaking. I was alone, except for Helen beside me and a small recorder in my front pocket, blinking. Connor leaned forward. Grandpa, I never meant to hurt you. That thing I said, it was just a dumb joke. I was nervous. You know how I talk when I'm nervous. I didn't move. Mark cleared his throat. Dad, look, we handled this wrong. We let things get out of hand, but we're still family. You raised me better than this. Let's fix it, okay? Give us the house. That's all. We won't touch the rest. Just the house? I asked quietly. Mark nodded. You don't even live there anymore. It's sitting empty. Connor added, we'll take care of it. We'll make it yours again in your memory. They were trying everything now, guilt, nostalgia, false humility. But it all smelled the same, desperation dressed in Sunday manners. The mediator finally spoke. Mr. Marshall, would you like to respond? I reached into my coat and placed one folded page on the table. Not a speech, not an offer, just a sentence. Let the document speak. The mediator read it, looked at me, nodded once. Helen smiled. Connor's mouth hung open just slightly. Mark's fists clenched under the table. I stood slowly. The oxygen tank hissed as I pulled it behind me. Neither of them said a word as I left. In the hallway, I paused at the window. It was raining, the kind that tapped gently against the glass but never stayed, like the years I gave them, time they never valued until it disappeared. They had tried to renovate me out of their lives, but there was nothing left to remodel, no corners of kindness to reclaim, no room left to pretend. Just the truth, and a signature that would outlive all of us. 6 months passed quieter than I ever expected. I sit now on a wooden bench in a garden behind the Literacy Foundation Center. The plaque reads, in honor of Elaine Marshall, advocate, teacher, wife. They placed it just beneath the climbing ivy, subtle, strong, just like her. The air smells like spring and worn books. Inside, a group of kids is reading aloud in a circle, their voices rising and falling like music. Outside, a young man sits under the sycamore tree, lost in a paperback. He doesn't know me, doesn't know what I gave up to make this place possible, and that's exactly how it should be. The house is gone now, sold quietly, cleanly. Every dollar redirected into something Elaine would have believed in. No one could touch it, not Mark, not Connor, not even time. The cottage I moved into isn't grand, but it's mine. A small unit run by veterans. There's a chessboard out front and morning coffee brewed strong. People greet each other by name. No one watches the clock, waiting for someone to die so they can redecorate. I carry a new oxygen tank, now smaller, lighter. I still wheeze, still pause between steps, but I walk more. I sleep without counting my breaths. The walls don't echo with silence anymore. Every few weeks, Helen sends me updates, small wins, stories of other elders finding strength, choosing justice. You started something, she wrote last time. You reminded people they're not invisible. Mark hasn't called. Connor stopped texting after the article went viral. Their lawyers tried, letters dressed in legal jargon and veiled threats, but Helen returned everyone sealed, signed, and rejected. There's no bitterness left, just distance. Sometimes, I wonder if they drive past the house, if Connor feels something when he sees the plaque in the library window, or if Mark still tells people the lie that I changed. Maybe, maybe not. None of that matters now. I pull my coat tighter as a breeze moves through the garden. The young man under the tree turns a page, smiling to himself. Elaine used to say legacy wasn't about what you leave behind. It's about who you leave it to. I left mine in safer hands. Not money, dignity, and the sound of justice, wheezing softly in every breath I still take.